Hi, everyone. On today's episode of The Breakup, we looked at fear factors and how the logic around fear can actually bring on a Bitcoin standard and how fear factors into the Bitcoin standard. Our analysis really began with an idea that you can understand a country and a nation and a psychology by the insults that they have because that underlines what fears they have. A great example is in South Korea. Did you know that the word puppy, geiseki, is one of the worst things you can say? It's a Confucian system. You're not only young, but you're subhuman and young. So if you want to start a fight in Korea, call someone a geiseki. It'll get it going real quick. So these insults and what we call people and what they underline about our fear are a big deal. And fiat has its own fears, and one of them is status and conflict and not being enjoyed and appreciated by a crowd, right? Because we've made the argument many times that your proximity to the money printer, your proximity to hierarchies of power are a big deal in the fiat system. You got to be near it. And Mike Cernovich had a really interesting take on his blog on Substack, The Other Side of Fear. And here's what he said. The fear we live with and that keeps us alive is also holding us back and protecting us from ego damage. People might make fun of me. That's the source of 90% of fear. And we saw that, for example, with Tucker Carlson's January 6th stuff. The only coverage it got in the mainstream media was from, for example, the Washington Post saying the following. Tucker Carlson lampooned by Anderson Cooper and late-night comedians over January 6th coverage. Anderson Cooper, Stephen Colbert, and Marlon Wayans used their late-night TV platforms to criticize Fox News host Tucker Carlson over January 6th coverage. So right there, trying to use fear of not being by being laughed at, like Cernovich anticipated. We even saw the New York Times with articles all the time about being afraid of tech and Bitcoin and these other things. Marc Andreesen had a point here where he said, overheard in Silicon Valley, the storyline keeps changing, terrorism, climate, pandemic, now AI risk, but somehow the proposed solution remains the same, total centralization of control by a single global government. Indeed, that's what Bitcoiners are afraid of. That's why when you're called a shitcoiner, an insider, Bitcoiners are afraid of leaders, right? So the whole idea of status moving leadership groups around is exactly what Bitcoiners are afraid of. So because Bitcoiners have the appropriate gauge on what to fear, it's a big part of our momentum moving forward. And someone broke it down exactly how these arguments are canned all the time around everything that has to do with AI and Bitcoin. So here's the argument from Dystopia Breaker. Every tech is a threat to democracy. AI, yep. Bitcoin, yep. Surveillance state, broken robot noises. Every new thing threatens democracy except the surveillance state, military-industrial complex, oligarchy, state overreach, Gladio-style embedded provocateur ops, private public censorship. Those things are all normal and vital to protect democracy. Unlike end-to-end encryption, privacy-preserving technology, open source software, or individual capability augmenting AI, which are threats to democracy. You can pretty much safely substitute democracy for elite oligarchy in most of this schlock. Indeed, but that's the good news, right? Because we are afraid of different things, we can also laugh. Insults matter. What we insult people for matters. And we saw one of the greatest insults going on ever yesterday with Chuck Schumer saying, we gotta stop Tucker Carlson. And of course, Elon Musk subtweeted him, do you want us to take this video off? Do you want us to censor this video? And even better than that, we had our man Niraj Agrawal, who picked up on Paul Krugman, the ultimate of these elite status insiders. He writes for the New York Times, he won a Nobel Prize, and he hates Bitcoin. So luckily, Niraj kept a tweet that Paul Krugman shared many years ago saying, cryptocurrency lets you make electronic transactions in soda bank accounts, debit cards, PayPal, Venmo, etc. All these other methods involve trusting a third party, but unless you're buying drugs and assassinations, that's not a big deal. And then he comes in and tweets yesterday, Paul Krugman again, he says, too busy to tweet, but not to vent. I've been using Venmo for years, but now it won't allow me to make payments. I spent a long time in chat with representatives, and they told me they can't explain why or fix it. The software has taken control. So Niraj, with the comedy, comes in and says, were you trying to buy assassinations or drugs? So we're going to laugh. We have the actual proper metric gauge on fear. I think what we're afraid of is the right thing to be afraid of in the world we live in today. Be fearful of these organized structures. Be fearful of leadership. Be fearful of those who would provoke interest in one direction and would dominate your dopamine delivery systems and shorten your attention span. That's the kind of stuff we talk about every day on The Breakup. Join us 8 a.m. every single day. I'm your host, Count BTC. Please like and subscribe. Thanks a lot, everyone.